Good morning. My understanding is everyone was supposed to be in here and listen to a goofy-looking bald guy. Well, you got him, just the wrong one. I don't know where Walter is. I'd love to see him too. But, take off the mask? I can do that. I don't guess I'm going to hurt anybody from all this distance. I'm about as social distance as you can get. Most of you know who I am. For those of you who don't, my name is Kyle Clayton. I'm a missionary to India. I've been here to Woodstock many, many times. For those of you who don't know my wife, Sony, go ahead and stand up. We do not have the kids with us today. Sunshine has just gone back to India. She is getting back to work over there, although Sony and I are honestly scared to death. COVID cases in India are skyrocketing at the moment, and more lockdowns are happening in certain parts of the country. Jordan and Preeti are both in Montgomery. Preeti, of course, still in college. Jordan is working down there. We have moved to Montgomery, for those of you who don't know what's going on in our lives. We decided to move down there back in August, not so that we could be closer to Preeti, but that so when India opened back up and we were able to go back to India, Preeti could be close to home and take care of things. That was the plan. And then I think a couple weeks after we moved to Montgomery, Jordan calls us and said, can I move home? And I said, sure. So now we have both the kids nearby. Jordan's in the house, Preeti's close by. And today is the first time I have spoken since October, I think. With all the lockdowns and problems with congregations not meeting here, it's just been very difficult to get to go anywhere. So we are opening our work back up. Now I know that all of you are aware, I believe, of my father passing away back in March, and I know there have been a lot of questions about that. You may have noticed that for those of you who have been here when I've spoken before, normally you get handouts when I come in, or when you come in, and you didn't get that today. I'm out of practice, like I just said, and when we were coming up here from Montgomery on Thursday, I didn't pack any handouts to bring with me. So today I just kind of have to wing it. I do want to remind you, let's just kick this off. Back in 1979, in January of that year, my father made his first trip to India. This was the culmination, I guess you could say, of a long correspondence history with a man from the city of Kurnool in Andhra Pradesh. His name was Bandaru John. And Brother John and my dad had been writing, I think it was about 12 to 15 years, back and forth. And every time, John was asking my dad, brother, please come to India, please come to India. And my dad wanted to go. It just never seemed to have the opportunity until we were living in Phoenix, Arizona at the time, and Dad was preaching for a congregation, and the elders finally said, okay, sure, you can go. And so they gave him a 1 month time he could take off, kind of like Matt does when he goes to India. And but at the time he was making 3 trips, actually. He was going to India for 2 weeks, Tanzania for 1 week, and then Greece for 1 week. India is the one that stuck with my dad. And he came back so excited about it. Then in 1980, he made another trip to India, and that time he took my mother with him. They made 2 trips, I believe, that year, and then decided that in 1981 the entire family was going to go. So I made my first trip, the youngest of 3 boys, to India when I was 11 years old. The plan that my parents had was that we were going to stay for 5 years, but ended up staying only 5 months. We came back to the States, and my dad went back to local work for a few years, and in 1985 went back into India work full-time again, and had been so the rest of his life. In 1993, after years of prodding and requesting and all of this, I finally agreed that I would go back to India For those of you don't know the story, my dad would ask me during summer holidays in high school. I wasn't interested. Went to college full time for 3 years, and that including summers. But after I got out of college and went to doing various jobs and wasn't doing very well or enjoying them. At the beginning of August of '93, my dad just sat me down and said, "Kyle, why don't you just come to India?" I said, "Okay." Well, I got 3 conditions. Number 1, I'm only going to stay 2 months, not a day longer. Number 2, I'm not going to preach, so don't ask. And number 3, don't try getting me married off to a young Indian girl. You see how well that worked out. I met her my second day in the country. We were engaged officially the day I was planning on being back in the States, and 18 days after that, we were hitched. 27 and a half years later, for the most of that time, I have actually still been in India. Now, in 2001, we were joined by Robert Hall. Robert and his wife and all 3 of their daughters all live up in the Athens, Alabama area. And then in 2004, we were joined by Ben Reniger from Fayetteville, Tennessee. Now, we have had many others who have come with us to India, whether it be a one-time visit or they come on a regular basis. People from Washington State, West Virginia, Ohio, Texas, Arizona, you name it. We have people spread out all over this country who have all been to India to see the work that we're doing. But with the death of my father, of course, there have been a lot of questions. Especially what's going to happen now? And the day that he died, Robert Hall and Ben Reniger both came to Hamilton, where my father and my parents were living. We sat down in my dad's office. We had a very impromptu meeting discussing this very thing. And all of us agreed that we are in this. Not because we don't have another choice, but because this is what we've been doing now for years. And why change that? We have, of course, had to not just answer this question for us, but for the congregations here in the States. We've had to answer this for the people in India. What are we going to be doing? And as far as we're concerned, everything is business as usual. We are going to go back to India just as soon as the government of India, allows tourism to open back up. We just have, unfortunately, no idea when that's going to be. So right now, we're on furlough. That's just about all we can say about it. For those of you who are familiar with this, you're going to get a refresher course. For the new ones, you're going to be hearing a little bit about the work that we do. Like I said earlier, my father first went to India in 1979, and when he set up this work, it was not a mission like many people think of a mission work. We did not set up one church building, one school, and housing, or medical, or whatever. The idea that my dad had years ago, and this is the policy we have worked with ever since, is that our role is going to be to teach, train, and encourage preachers. And so because of that, we have spread our work all across the country of India. We have operations going on in 11 different states, from as far north as Gujarat to as far south as Tamil Nadu, almost to the very southern point of the country, and Kanyakumari. But the work has spread. And the way this has worked is one of our programs of operation. We call them denominational preacher seminars. This is one thing that Ben Reniger has been heavily involved in. I have been involved in them as well, but Ben, this is primarily his job. The idea is, if I was going to convert one preacher from a denomination, think of all the contacts he has. Well, we can then, through him, try to reach out to others. So we will have him invite them to one several-day meeting and just teach the gospel. Weed out the errors, trying to get people simply back to the Word of God. And in doing so, we've been very successful in converting many, many denominational preachers. And I'm talking well over 30,000. We estimate that we work with 50,000 native Indian preachers. Now, this is directly and indirectly. Not all of them receive support. And if we were going to try to put all these people on support, we would never have enough money to do anything else. So we have a very small number of men that are full-time evangelists, and I'm not talking about men who preach in one congregation. I'm talking about people who 2 or 3 weeks out of every month are gone from their homes. They can't have a regular job. They are out spreading the gospel. And so we support these few. But these are just a few of the works we're involved in. Of course, we, like I said earlier, part of our policy is to teach and train preachers. So we have set up schools. Originally, the schools that were set up, we called them the Kate K. Memorial Bible Institutes. These are one-day-a-week Bible schools specifically designed to teach and train preachers. There was no graduation ever planned. There was no set curriculum. The idea was that these preachers would come together, they would study together, learn to work together, and then just continue doing this and encouraging one another. And so these schools have been opened up all across the country. We estimate now, I believe the number is around 1,600 branches of these schools all across India. But that has evolved somewhat. We still have the KCMBIs in operation, but then we decided to open up intensive preacher training schools. So the Carl Crosser Memorial Institutes of Biblical Studies was born. In the beginning, we just had one branch in the city of Hyderabad where we live. That one has had to be shut down. The man who was in charge of it decided to no longer work with us. We've had branches in Markapur of Andhra Pradesh, in Tubardu of Andhra Pradesh. We've had in Pangalore and Bidar. So we've had 5 branches, 3-month intensive preacher training schools. We've had to shut down the one in Hyderabad. Like I said, we had to shut down the one in Tubardu because of property issues. The family that owned the property became very hateful, and so we had to shut that one down. But the man who was in charge of that, his name is T.J. Manicrao, and T.J. came to us and said, "Brother, if the preachers can't come to me, let me go to them." And so he travels 2 to 3 weeks out of every month, going to 3 different locations, teaching preachers. It takes longer, I admit, but the program is still active. Markapur is still active. Pangalore is still active. We have opened one not directly related to us. Brother Jairus Bullard from Manassas, Virginia, he has funded a school in Pamadi Pardu, and we visit there regularly. Bidar is still somewhat in operation. The man who was in charge of it passed away, and we just never have really found a good replacement. And so we still have classes there. It's just not an organized set of work. The next step of this is to expand beyond 3 months. And so in Naredachirla, Nalgonda district of Andhra Pradesh, or is that in Telangana, Sony? It's in Andhra still? Okay. Brother A. Abraham asked to open up a school. It began as a 3-month program, and then after a year or so of that, we expanded it to a 6-month program, then to 1 year, and now it's a 2-year program. And so we are finding all these different ways that we can continue to teach and train the men that we work with. Other avenues that we use are the Haslam Fulford Memorial Preachers Lectureships. This used to be just an annual event. We would go to different locations around the country. It might be for 3 or 4 days, maybe as much as a week. In one case, I taught a series of classes, lasted an entire month. We've had as few as 120 men for 1 month, as many as 1,000 men for 3 days. The idea of the Haslam Fulford Memorial Preachers Lectureships were to teach immediate needs so that we could reach or deal with issues, deal with more education of what they might need in that particular area. If they have questions that they just need answers to. And it's not just the Americans that are teaching these classes. We have very, very capable Indian preachers and teachers that work with us as well. But the works spread. As for those of you who have been to India, you're well aware of this. Others may understand this as well. Preachers in India, by and large, are not supported by their congregations, at least not enough that they could feed themselves and take care of their families. Most congregations in India, the members are very poor. And so contributions are very small. Many of those preachers have to work regular weekly day jobs, whether it be in the fields. Some of them build houses, some are electricians, some are tailors. Just random things that they will have to do that they can take care of their families and at least keep food on their tables. But there are emergencies that come up and needs that have to be met. Medical needs, for example. Other larger issues like medical help and educational help for children, things of that nature. And so we have done our best over the years to help with these needs as they arise. One of the works that I do as far as the office work, I guess you could say, is dealing with medical cases. Now, I'm not a doctor. I don't understand a lot of medical jargon or anything like that. But the way this had been going on before I went to India and before I took over this part of the work, men would ask my dad, this brother over here fell off his bicycle or on the road, broke his leg, and he needs this much for the surgery. My dad would just write a check. Usually what he would do, he would take the amount, divide it in half, and then that's how much he would give the check for. But these people are in serious need, and in many cases, they would still not be able to easily handle the other part of that. And so we understand the policy kind of got to be like this. They knew that my dad was going to give them half what they asked for. So then they would double what they needed. And then my dad would cut that in half. They have what they needed to pay the bills, and everyone was happy. But although we see it as somewhat dishonest, they were in need. But I decided we needed to have more accountability. And so I have an application process. They have to submit to me bills, documentation showing that, yes, they not only went to the hospital, they got the tests done, they had the surgery performed, whatever. And I just verify that everything's been done, and then I make a calculation. However, due to the policies that we put in place, and we have expanded this a little bit, in the beginning, my limit was about $500 per case. And I do not even consider helping childbirth. That's not our problem. But medical expenses in India, medical costs in India have very, very drastically skyrocketed. And so I have had to expand the amount of money I am able to give per request. So now it's closer to about $750. And last month we were up in Hazel Green, Alabama, meeting with the elders that oversee our work at the Shiloh congregation, talking to them about the need to expand it even more. And they've given that approval. The problem is right now I am here and all the cases are there. I can't fulfill any requests at all right now. And so people are struggling. This is another just byproduct of what COVID has done to us and to our work. For those of you who have kept up with everything that's been going on through the newsletters or whatever, COVID, the lockdowns in India shut everything down for about 8 months. We were having very little ability to send men out to do any work. We were just trying to get help to preachers so that they could continue to feed their families, because they can't work. They don't have any other source of income except us. And so yes, a lot of people from here were sending money just to help for COVID relief over in India. We weren't giving them large sums of money by any stretch of the imagination. We were just trying to help them survive. And the thing is, we didn't even ask people here to do this. People just started sending money, and they were marking it for COVID. And so that was the only option we had was, well, if people here want us to use this for COVID relief, then we're going to use it for COVID relief. And I don't even know how many hundreds of thousands of dollars people sent just for that. And so we have been able to help a large number of preachers, not just to feed their families, but also for the medical cases that did come up. We made special considerations for them, trying to help them get medical bills, but still, the totals that we have, over 600 preachers in India died, including one that was very close to my family, Brother B. Shivraj. Shivraj was a man I knew when I was 11 years old, and that first time I went to India. He was our night watchman. Now, I was not a big kid at 11 years old, and Shivraj was probably in his early 20s at the time, and he got my hand-me-downs. He was a pretty small guy, but over the past 27 years of my being back in India and getting to see his family now and his children grown up, one of his sons is also preaching now, and he attends a class that I teach every Monday and Tuesday there in Hyderabad. But sadly, Shivraj did not survive COVID. But we are keeping in touch with his wife and sons and making sure everything is okay with them. But the work continues. In October, things kind of opened back up a little bit. We were able to start sending the men out, and they hit it full force, going as fast as they could, going to as many places as they could. Because, let's be honest, we're tired of being not able to go anywhere also, and the same was true for them. So they really got after it. Sadly, I don't have any of the numbers with me at the moment, but the work, like I said, the work has continued, and the results have been astounding. We have been very fortunate to have a great group of workers over in India. And after my father passed away, I've said it already, I think Dad probably had a couple hundred funerals all across India. They have sent us pictures of memorial services they were having, big banners with my dad's picture up, and that way the congregations could come together. And for those who knew my dad and have known him for years, and they could also mourn with us in their own way. We had live streamed the funeral on Facebook from the Hamilton Church of Christ. The link is still up if anybody was interested in going to see that. I know that there were hundreds and hundreds of viewings, hundreds of comments. I don't even remember how many different people shared it. We had pictures sent to us of congregations, middle of the night, people sitting in a small home watching the funeral. And that was just their great respect and love for my father. Now, like I said, I was kind of having to wing all of this. And I do want to open this up if anybody does have any questions, more specifics about the work or about our future in the work or anything of that nature. So at any time, raise your hand. Otherwise, we may have a lot of silence. Part of the plan that we have already discussed, as soon as the doors are open for India, my mom she just got her first vaccine shot last week. I don't know if Robert and Ben intend to get it or not. If I don't have to, I'm not going to. But as soon as we find out that the gates of India are opened, we are going to start booking our flights. All of us intend to go at the same time, not on the same flight. We want to make sure that if there's any emergencies, somebody will always be there. But we do plan to get there as quickly as we can. And because the people in India, although we have given them as many messages of encouragement that we possibly can, they want to see us. They want us back on Indian soil. They want to know, they want that assurance that we are still there with them, that we're working with them. And I guess I could say honestly, and I understand it, they have fears as well. What's going to happen to me? What's going to happen to our work if the Americans don't come anymore? If they can't help us, if they can't encourage us, what will happen to the campaigns and all of this? Because many of these people, although they're capable of spreading the gospel, they aren't capable of traveling to spread the gospel as easily as we might hope. Transportation in India is not expensive, but to travel a great deal it adds up. And so the people in India, that's one of the things we do, is to send out preachers so that they can hold campaigns. Of course, with any mission work or mission effort, evangelism has to be the first priority, above the medical, or above helping preachers with one-time needs or whatever. Evangelism is still our priority. And whether it's in the city of Hyderabad or Bangalore or any other large city, or where we go out into the villages, where in some places where they've never seen a foreigner before, they still need that encouragement. They need to be able to be sent out. And I'm going to be talking about that more during the worship time. I'm working from memory here. I think the last information I had about results, and I know this is a question everybody wants to have an answer to, is, what good have we done over in India? I can't even tell you how many gospel meetings have been held over the years. That's a number that really isn't all that important. We are preaching the gospel. What I do know is that millions of people have come to Christ. This is not the work of just a few Americans. This is the work of all the Indians. They do the bulk of the work. We have said it time and time again. It's not our work, it's their work. It's their languages, their villages, their people, their cultures. It's their families and friends. They are the ones who know the ins and outs of where they're taking us. This is their work. We are helping them do their work. And so the 50,000 preachers that we work with have done by far the bulk of this work. And due to that, millions have come to Christ. The next question is, well, how successful are we in keeping them? The estimate that we have given is anywhere between 70 and 80% in a retention rate. Of course, we know that people die. And because of that, of course, we can't keep those faithful. But very few actually fall away. I'm not saying we've never had it happen. We've had preachers who have fallen away. We've had preachers who have left us because we wouldn't put them on support, and they've left to a denominational group because they would put them on support. It doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. But by and far, the results that we have had in India have been very, very positive. And we want to thank you, because you have been a steady part of this work for several years now. And it all began with that couple right back there, Reg and Kathy. I don't know where they first heard of the work or how they first came into contact with us, but I believe it was in September, or a little earlier than that, I guess, that year. You went to India in September. They came to our office in Hamilton. They sat down with all of us. The only time we had at that time all the American members of this team in the same room at the same time. And they just talked to us and with us, asking questions about India. A few months later, they went over. And I guess spent about a month, 6 weeks at the time. Then came back here and got everybody here fired up. And ever since then, Matt and Dave, love those two men. But of course, we've had several other come with us as well. And so you have all been very active in your participation in the work in India, and we're thankful for it. Do we have any questions? Yes.
Do you have from either other religions or the government?
Let's start with the government. Okay, right now the government of India is very, very pro-Hindu. They do not like any evangelism. In some areas, although I'm not sure if it's constitutional, I'm not sure if they're enforced, but there are several states that have anti-conversion laws that you have to get the government's permission if you want to actually convert. The problem is how much trouble that's going to cause you if you do. A lot of conversions, they just don't report. You and I understand it's not the government's business. We can make our own choices what we want to believe. Unfortunately, the government thinks it's their business. But the BJP government of India has been very antagonistic, and this is nothing new. They are just the most outspoken political wing. Now, there are very, not secretive, okay, but quasi-political groups like the Shiv Sena, which operates mostly in Maharashtra state, the RSS, which is spread all through the country. They have communist groups, both political and non-political. And so they can all cause problems. But we have also had a large number of issues with denominational groups. One example was Brother B. Subbarao. This was several years ago. I mentioned the school in Tubardu. He lived right in that area, I think about 5 kilometers away in Nadinla. He had been a Lutheran and decided to convert. Well, because the Lutherans owned the property and the house he was living in, they kicked him out of the house. His family did not want to convert, so they were allowed to stay. But he was going back to Lutherans, trying to convert people from that church. And some of the leaders of the Lutheran church ganged up on him, beat him, broke both his legs. And that's one of the nice ones. We've had people that have been put to death. Very few cases, but it has happened. We've had, Sony and I have had our own issues ourselves, basically being held hostage at one point, 10 years ago, roughly. And it wasn't even because of what we believed, because sadly, many of the people who were threatening us that day were supposed to be members of the church. And needless to say, we cut ties with a lot of people very quickly. Anything else? No? Yes?
How much of your work is around Hyderabad, and then how much is spread out around the country?
Okay, well, Hyderabad is our home base. But believe it or not, most of the work gets done in Prakasham and Guntur districts of Andhra Pradesh. Now, this is by car about 6 to 7 hours. The reason for that is there are a lot of people with the church who have actually gone into places like Vijayawada, which is in Krishna district, but only about an hour from the city of Guntur. So you have Vijayawada, Guntur, and then a little farther south in Ongole. A lot of Americans have gone there. A lot of work has been done. And so the church is actually very widespread in these areas. But now, there have been people try to make the statements that the claims we make about so many congregations meeting in this area is just not possible because there aren't that many villages. Well, there are not many villages by name. But when you have a village set up in India, usually that's just a hub, okay? And so from that hub, this is where the police station would be, the post office, schools, whatever. But then you will have colonies set up as satellite villages all around this thing. And so if we have one congregation in each of those little satellite villages, as well as the main village, and multiple may be in that, the number of congregations really does add up. Our calculation several years back was there are more congregations of the Lord's Church in Prakasham district of Andhra Pradesh than all of Texas and Tennessee combined. That's a lot. And just think, that's only one district. Now, what if you spread that out all across Andhra Pradesh, all around? Now, Telangana is a newer state. This happened about 7-8 years ago. Where Hyderabad is still located, local government wanted to have a different state. Hyderabad is now the capital of 2 states until they can set up the infrastructure in Andhra Pradesh. But we have a lot of work in Karnataka state, and basically if you were to look at a map, I'm sorry I don't have one, but if you were to look at a map and you find Mumbai on the west coast and Visakhapatnam on the east coast, or for you that would be west and east, and then all the way down That's where most of our work is located. But we, like I said, we have gone as far north as Rajasthan. We've had work in Gujarat State. We've had work in Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Uttar Pradesh, Chhattisgarh. The list can go on and on and on. We have had men who are from Andhra Pradesh that because of work traveled outside the state. And this is really how it began. They travel outside the state and they can preach. They take their family with them, so they start preaching to their family, and then they will start reaching out to neighbors. They'll start trying to contact those members of denominational groups, trying to reach them and convert them. Years ago, my father made, okay, thank you. So Rajasthan is the big orange one on the top left. My dad and my parents decided years and years ago they wanted to take a vacation in India. They had always wanted to go up to Rajasthan, and so they decided they were going to take about a week and go up there. They had one Indian brother that they took with them named Vadni Luke. And they go up there just enjoying it because there's a lot of historical places, things to see, and all of this. And they'd been there a couple of days, and Vadni came to my dad and said, "Brother, do you want to have a gospel meeting tonight?" And my dad was shocked. He said, "Vadni, you don't know anybody here. You don't speak the same language they speak. How on earth do you have this gospel meeting?" He said, "Well, my brother's wife's sister lives here. She married a man, and that's where he was from. So do you want to have a gospel meeting tonight?" In other words, Vadni was saying, the meeting's happening whether you're coming or not. And so my dad went. And that has begun a long, very slow work in Rajasthan state. The Rajasthani people are just very different than what we deal with in, you see, Telangana is the orange in the middle, Andhra Pradesh is the purple. So about halfway from in Maharashtra, the blue one, straight across to the top of that point for Andhra Pradesh, and south, that's us. We have work as far in the green in Uttar Pradesh, the yellow, the blue, Rajasthan, Gujarat, Bihar, and Jharkhand. And Haryana, the light blue and up top, Uttarakhand, that purple one at the very top. So we are spread out a great deal, not so much to the east. We did have some work in West Bengal, but that kind of fell through. One of the brothers, Jairus Bullard, I may have mentioned him earlier. He operates the school in Pangalore. Pamdi Pardu. He does have work actually in Manipur state, which is the tan-colored one all the way to the right. And it hasn't been a very easy road getting things done over there. They are just very different people. But we have spread out all across the country. I have actually been to Assam, which is the maroon one right there on the right. I was invited from another team to just go spend a few days teaching in a school. So I took one Indian brother with me to translate. Got up there, I actually didn't even need it. Most of the students spoke decent English. They understood me well enough for me to teach class, and just enjoyed being there with them for a few days. I've continued to be in touch with several of those students for several years now. One of them actually was from Andhra Pradesh and had gone all the way up to Assam to go to school. We have schools much closer. So I don't know how he got in touch with that particular location. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
How much problem do you end up with education?
Education, you mean like just regular schooling education? Well, no, it's no problem. In India, education is widely available. The government does technically fund schools up to 10th grade. There are a lot of government-funded, what they call an intermediate college, which would be 11th and 12th, and then degree college, which is just 2 more years to get a bachelor's. Colleges are everywhere, but they're just not large. You don't go to one university necessarily and have your option of studying either history or art or science or whatever. You get one college that will teach engineering, one college that will teach history, one college will teach English. Okay? I mean, they'll teach other subjects, but you're only going to get a degree in the one thing at that place. There are very few universities or colleges that have multiple degree options. The problem is it's not cheap, and most of the people that we work with can't afford them. And so this is one of the things we have done over the years, is trying to help students. We have a set of policies. You know, for us to consider helping a student to go to college, they had to have had 75% passing grade the previous year. Otherwise, we can't help. We have even recently gotten out of the business of, and I don't want anybody to sound bad, think I'm sounding bad about this. We've gotten out of the policy of helping young women go to college, because we were paying for women to go to college to find husbands instead of going to college to find jobs. That was really what it boiled down to. And so we've just put an end to that. You know, if we're going to help fund somebody to go to college, we want them to use that for their livelihood. And if they're not going to do that, then we can't justify spending the money for it. It's kind of been a harsh decision we've had to make. But the education is available. And as we know from the fact how many Indians come over here as doctors, it's not a bad education system. But maybe a lot of some advancements still need to be made in some areas. But the education is there. I think I'm out of time. Yes or no? Because I can't see the clock. All good? All right. Well, again, we're glad to be with you. If you do have any questions later on, just please feel free to come and ask. That's what we're here for. And, of course, we want to be able to visit with you as much as we can. Thank you very much.